Welcome back. In last few sessions, we discussed about the uncertainty in the supply chains and we tried to understand the modeling related to uncertainty in the supply chain with the help of a question where we want to discuss that where should we develop our facilities. And we took an example where we have a particular demand and there is a particular price of the commodity and over a period of time demand can also fluctuate and price can also fluctuate and we had two options, either we can go for a lease contract or we can go for the spot market. With the help of decision tree analysis, we developed a decision tree and we saw that how can we evaluate alternatives to get the best option. Now, this is all about the predictive analytics, that we want to predict about the future as accurate as possible and obviously given a variety of alternatives, I will like to select one alternative which maximizes my expected profit. Now, flexibility is one such area which we need to incorporate in our supply chain for handling these uncertainties, because earlier there was a time we used to have almost lot of certainty with respect to various underlying factors of the supply chain. But as we all see, we are seeing so many things which are uncertain and all of a sudden these things may crop up, and to handle those things flexibility is required in the supply chain. In our earlier class also we had a little bit of discussion about the flexibility in the supply chain, that we need to have adaptable supply chains, we need to have aligned supply chains and we also need to have agility in our supply chain, where our supply chain can respond quickly in short time to the changes of demand and supply. Our supply chain should be creating such type of incentives along the partners within the supply chain for better overall performance. If in a supply chain environment, when we have a vendor, a manufacturer, a wholesaler, a retailer, these different entities are there, but normally we all know that if one OEM is there in a supply chain, so normally OEM designs the supply chain in such a way that he takes the maximum amount of profit. So now when we are talking of alignment, the supply chain should be developed in such a way that the equal share or the proportional share of all the partners of the supply chain can be taken care of. Then adaptable, where my supply chain can adapt to the design to meet the structural shift in market, it can modify supply network strategies, product, technologies, etc. We had the case of Dell, where earlier Dell was supplying only through online orders and that was one of the USP of Dell. But over a period of time, when Dell realizes that now it is no longer profitable to supply through that online mode, so Dell also started brick and mortar system, the retail system of distribution of the product. So you need to be adaptable as per the changing requirement, otherwise you will be out of the market. So these are the three important elements of the flexibility. Now we will continue with our example of this ABC logistics, which we discussed in detail in our last session, and from this point we will like to see that how the flexible options are better than two dedicated options which we have discussed. One dedicated option, if you remember, we discussed where we had all warehousing space from the spot market, and then the other dedicated option was to sign a 3-year lease for a fixed amount of time, and these were the two dedicated options. Now, we want to incorporate flexibility into this discussion, and why flexibility? That I want to use, I have this 100,000 square feet area which I can go for a lease of 3 years, or I do not take this area, I take the spot market option. So, these were the first two cases. So, the third option is to sign a flexible lease deal where we pay some minimum charge upfront, which makes us used to be for this 100,000 square feet, but there may be a kind of variable arrangement that if I do not want the complete space, I pay only for a limited space, and then remaining space can also be paid on some kind of additional rental. So, here in earlier cases, if you remember, if my demand is not 100,000 units, though in that case I was having some space which is unused, and still I was paying the rent for that if I was having the lease agreement. A spot market, I always need to buy space on a higher price from the market. So, there were limitations of lease agreement as well as of the spot market. So, in this flexible case, I want to take the benefit of a spot market as well as flexibility, or as well as the low cost of the lease system. So, now we will see that how are we going to model such type of situation. We have already discussed in our earlier session that how did we develop this decision tree. So, same just for a quick recapitulation, this is the initial demand of the product, that is 100, and these are the rate of my spot market, that is 1.20 square feet per for the spot market, and we have discussed that there are possibilities of increasing the demand or decreasing the demand by 20%. So, in the next period demand can increase by 20%, then it becomes 120, and demand can decrease by 20%, then it becomes 80. Similarly, price can increase by 10% for the spot market, or price can decrease also by 10%. When it increases it becomes 1.32, when it decreases it becomes 1.08. So, therefore, these 4 states are possible in period 1. Now, from these 4 states in period 1, each of these states will further give rise to 4 different states in period 2. There will be many common states also, therefore, we do not have 4 into 4 16 distinct states in period 2. Like you see for this second state here, where the demand is 144 and price is 1.19. So, you get this arrow here and this arrow also here. So, this state is common for 2 possible outcomes from state 1 and state 2 of period 1. So, it is quite possible, like in this case where demand is 96 and price is $1.19, you are seeing 4 arrows coming to this, means this state is one state which is possible from all 4 states of period 1. So, therefore, we do not have 16 distinct states in period 2, we have only some 9 different states in period 2. Now, after and same logic applies to this period also, that demand 120 can increase or decrease by 20%. So, if it increases by 20%, it becomes 144. If it decreases by 20%, it becomes 96 and 96. The price 1.32 can increase by 10%, can decrease by 10%. So, when it increases by 10%, 1.32 becomes 1.45, price becomes 1.45 in period 2, and when price decreases by 10%, 1.32, it becomes 1.19. So, these are the two states where price decreases and these are the two states where demand increases. Now, the possibility, the probability which we are taking, that is 50% for increase or decrease of the demand. Similarly, 50% is the probability of increase or decrease of the price of the spot market. So, and both these things are independent, both these things are independent, the increase of demand or decrease of demand, increase of price or decrease of demand. So, both these are independent. So, therefore, the transitive probabilities from this state to this state or from this state to any of these 4 states will be the multiplication of two different things. 0.5 is the probability of increase of the demand, 0.5 is the probability of increase of the price. So, 0.5 into 0.5 becomes 0.25. So, therefore, these are the probabilities 0.25, 0.25, 0.25, and similarly these are the probabilities 0.25, 0.25, 0.25 and 0.25. So, this is the decision tree, and this discussion we already had in our previous session. Now, in the previous sessions we evaluated the two possibilities. One possibility when we have the lease system, and what is that, and one possibility when we are going to have the spot market. So, these two things we have already evaluated, and we saw that lease system and this is the possibility of the profit, expected profit, when we are going to have the lease for 3 years, that is 38,364, and the possibility of profit from the spot market, the expected profit from the spot market is $5,471. So, if I compare between spot market and lease, I will obviously go for the lease because lease is giving me much higher profit. Now, I will like to evaluate the third type of alternative, which is the subject matter of discussion today, that is the flexibility in the supply chain decision. Now, I want to incorporate this flexibility in this discussion, and in the flexibility you see we will use the same decision tree which I just explained you in detail. Now, the issue is this, that the manager at ABC Logistics has been offered a contract where for an upfront payment of $10,000, I pay $10,000 today, that is that will make me, you can say, a kind of tentatively I can hold this space with $10,000. So, this is the initial payment I am going to make, that is $10,000. The initial payment and now the company has the flexibility of using between 60,000 square feet to 100,000 square feet of warehouse space at the rate of $1 per square feet per year. So, I can use from 60,000 to 100,000 I can use, but you can understand from this language that I need to pay for 60,000 for the $60,000 for the first 60,000. I need to pay first for this space 60,000 square feet $60,000, that I need to pay whether I am using it or not. So, that may, so my, you can say, the fixed component in this flexible case is this 60,000 square feet. The remaining, if I use more than that, if my requirement is 70,000, 80,000, 90,000. So, I need now to pay for this 100,000. So, the remaining space which I use for that additional at the rate of $1 per square feet per year I will pay. So, this is that 60,000 for that purpose I am paying $60,000, and the remaining up to 40,000 square foot on demand, as per my demand, I will pay for $1 per square foot per year. Now, doing the calculation as we did in the case of any of the earlier methods. So, we go back to this decision tree and we like to see that how this method is applicable. When my demand is, let us say, I take two scenarios to make you understand that how the calculation will proceed. So, we will start from period 2, and in period 2 let us take 2-3 different scenarios. One scenario where the demand is 144 and spot market price is 1.45. When demand is 144 units, price is 1.45, and this I am talking in period 2. So, when this is the data, so out of this 144,000 units of demand, I will like to fulfill my 100,000 demand from the lease agreement. So, for that purpose my cost is 100,000 into that is the at the rate of $1 per square feet will be available to me, plus for having this kind of arrangement I have already paid upfront payment of $10,000. So, that also will come, and at the same time the remaining 44,000, for that purpose I will require the spot market. So, for 40,000 you need to add the spot market rate, that is 1.45. So, this is going to be the cost, that this is the cost because of the lease agreement and this is the cost because of the spot market. So, this is one scenario of the cost, and obviously because you are selling entire 144,000 units. So, revenue will be 144,000, and you can remember the data that we are selling at the rate of 1.22. So, that is the rate at which we are selling. So, revenue minus this is the cost component. So, revenue minus cost will give you the profit for period number 2. This is going to give you the profit for period number 2. Now, it is up to us that we can eliminate this 10,000 right now in this calculation, and once we come with the final calculation, in that also we can add that whatever profit we are getting we will subtract 10,000 in that. So, that will also be possible. So, instead of adding 10,000 here, we will add 10,000 in the last of our cost component, and from the total profit we will subtract the 10,000 for getting this initial payment of the lease agreement. So, this is your now profit will be revenue minus cost, that is the profit for period number 2. When I come to period number 1, with this data I will calculate the present value of the future cash by dividing this value of profit by your factor of discount that we remember is the 10%. Now, come to a different situation where D is equals to 64. D is equals to 64 and the spot market price is 1.45. Now, the another situation is D equals to 64 and spot market price is 1.45. So, let us see how our calculations get changed when the price is 1.45 and demand is 64 and spot market price is 1.45. Since again we have this initial arrangement and in this case the cost component is 60,000, for that I am already paying at the rate of 1 per square feet and I am also taking 4,000 additional space. So, for 64,000 the total cost will be at the rate of 1 and I will not go to the spot market because I have total availability of space 100,000 square feet and the requirement is 64,000 square feet. So, this price of 1.45 is not applicable right now in this calculation. This price has no meaning. I have 0 spot market cost. So, this spot market cost in this case of 64 1.45 is no region, means it is not applicable to me. So, I will only incur this cost and then the revenue is 64,000 into 1.22 and then I also calculate the profit, that is R minus C. Similarly, if I go to this calculation, D equals to 96 and spot market price is 1.19. Take this calculation also, D equals to 96,000 and spot market price is 1.19. Now, this 96 is also less than 100,000 and therefore, again there is no use of this spot market price because my warehouse for which I am making a flexible arrangement can accommodate up to 100,000 units because the size is 100,000. So, for 96,000, 60,000 at the rate of 1 and additional 36,000 again at the rate of 1. So, for 96,000 my cost will be 96,000 square feet I will take at the rate of $1. So, that is my total cost and revenue will be simply 96,000 into 1.22. So, that is again I can calculate the profit. So, here by using this flexible system I will not incur any additional cost because of unused capacity. Now, you see in these two cases 64 and 96 where I am not able to use entire 100,000 square feet of the warehouse if I would have gone for complete lease arrangement. So, what would have happened that I will have some unused capacity of 4,000, I will have unused capacity of 36,000 and I am paying rent for that also. So, I am saving that amount of rent and therefore, this is much more profitable. And then with this calculation I request all my students that please make this calculation complete, and when you make this calculation complete you will see that the total amount of profit is coming to be $46,545. This is the total amount of profit which will come, that is 46,545, and in this calculation of profit I have already subtracted the $10,000 which we had made as upfront payment. So, that amount we have already subtracted. So, now if you compare the 46,000 we are getting here, the lease agreement was giving us 38,364 and spot market was giving us 5,471. So, obviously, out of these three alternatives, I will like to select this flexible arrangement, because this is giving me maximum expected profit. This is giving me maximum expected profit. Now, because here we have only two conditions, and price is either increasing or decreasing by 50%, and demand is also increasing or decreasing by 50%. So, you have only two situations, but as the amount of uncertainty increases, as the amount of uncertainty will be increasing, the flexible options give you more profitable or more value in the answers. So, when your uncertainties are higher, it is always advisable to go for more flexible options, because in that case the dedicated options may go unused if you do not have enough demand, enough supply. So, in that case the dedicated options will give you higher cost of higher fixed cost of your plant and machinery, etc. So, therefore, the flexible option is very useful, and you can see that in this particular example where we had only two options, that how incorporating a very little bit of flexibility, Now, you can do one more thing, and you can take this as part of your assignment also, or as a practice question, that for first 60,000, the price is at $1 per square feet. So, for 60,000 you are paying $60,000. Now, for the remaining space up to 40,000, the price is increased by 10 cents. It is $1.1 for any additional space after 60,000, and I request to do a revision of the entire calculation, and in that again you will see that what type of changes are there, because this is a very simple case we took to understand this phenomena, but you can see that how the increased cost of the because alternatives are different. So, you can have the additional space at a slightly higher rate than this $1 per square feet. So, you can try that option also. Now, going further into the discussion, we will see that you may like to establish these two types of facilities. So, it is a different type of situation where you can have dedicated capacity of 100,000 units in Gujarat and similar dedicated capacity of 50,000 in National Capital Region. Then you have another issue, that you can have a flexible capacity of 100,000 units in Gujarat and 50,000 units in NCR, and again we are going to evaluate it for 3 periods from 0, 1 and 2. So, let us see that what is the difference between dedicated and flexible capacities. In these two cases, when we want to make any product, and you can take the, I am taking Gujarat and NCR, it will be more appropriate if you take two different countries, and in that case you can incorporate the issues related to exchange rates also. So, you can try that you replace Gujarat by India, and take in place of NCR you take country like Vietnam. So, it can be India and Vietnam also. So, that will make this discussion more interesting, and not only the demand and price, rather exchange rate fluctuation will also come into picture. So, the data available to us is like that for investment, for the dedicated plant and for the flexible plant. The size of the plant is 100,000 and 50,000 respectively. The fixed cost for the dedicated plant is 1 million per year at Gujarat, and NCR, because the land prices are very high, it is 4 million per year. So we are making tires here. So the variable cost is $15 here and it is $11 here. And similarly for the flexible plant, it is 1.1 million per year and 4.4 million per year, and the variable cost is same. It is as for the fixed dedicated plant, that is $15 and $11 respectively. Now the expected demand related to which Gujarat plant can fulfill is 100,000 initially, and the demand for the from the NCR plant to meet is 50,000. And there is a probability that demand can increase or decrease by 20% over a period of time, per period, with a probability. And let us say, since we are considering only one probability of 20% of increasing or decreasing the demand, so 50% up or 50% down, let us go with this simple assumption. Now when we consider this, and these are the two plants of 150, and to take this example on the international level, I have given a value of exchange rate also. So this E stands for the exchange rate, and there are these possible states which may emerge from period 0 to 1 and 1 to 2, and I request my students that please try to write the various transitive probabilities on these arrows. So you do not see this graph, I am not putting that slide for long, and you can develop this table on your own, this decision tree on your own. And once you have this decision tree available with you, then you can have these possible scenarios, that at both the places you have dedicated plant, at both the places you have a flexible plant, you have a flexible plant at Gujarat and dedicated plant at NCR, you have a dedicated plant at Gujarat and a flexible plant at NCR. And this becomes a question for you, that you can see that how with different plants you can serve the different markets. Like this, Gujarat plant will serve the Gujarat related area and the NCR related area also. The NCR plant can serve the Gujarat area also and NCR related area also. So you can have these types of scenarios possible, and it will be very interesting if you develop the entire decision tree, and I expect that you develop this decision tree on a spreadsheet, and then the calculation will be much easier. And finally, you can have this type of net present value. I am giving you the final slide, where if you have dedicated plant at both the locations, at Gujarat and NCR, the net present value is this figure. Then flexible plant at Gujarat and dedicated plant at NCR. So out of all these net present value calculations, you find that the highest net present value is available for the combination of dedicated plant at Gujarat and the flexible plant at NCR. So this way you could find that which is the most profitable configuration of our plants, and this is what we mean by incorporating flexibility in supply chain. So whenever uncertainty is there, and when uncertainty is higher, we need to include flexibility, and as you go, uncertainty is higher means, as in earlier case we considered only two parameters. One parameter was the demand and another parameter was the price of the spot market. In this example, we took three aspects. We considered two markets, their demands, and the second was the exchange rate fluctuations also, if it is a global kind of supply chain. So here we had three different type of parameters, and therefore more uncertainty is there. So as you increase the number of underlying parameters in the decision tree, you will have more states more states means more uncertainties, and therefore, the flexibility in the supply chain will give you the better answers. So, with this simple tool of decision tree and developing the payoff tables, and on the basis of that you calculate the net present value, and finally, we can see that out of various alternatives, which alternative is the most profitable one, means which alternative is giving you the highest net present value of the future cash flows. So, accordingly you can take the decision. Thank you very much, and with this we complete the discussion of uncertainties in the supply chain design.